Is Your Audio Sound? Installment 6. Turn it down. This is a podcast for people doing audio in church. The ideas are relevant in all live sound applications, but the words and examples I use here are mostly from the church context. I try to avoid using technical jargon and use everyday words in an attempt to make what seems complex a little easier to understand. What I'd like to talk about for the next 10 minutes is an overarching approach for achieving great sound for your congregation. It is pivotal to being able to utilise your front of house system to its best effect. One of the significant considerations in live sound is the amount of uncontrolled noise that is coming off the stage into the congregation. We're always looking at ways to control the excess sound on and coming off the stage. Quite often I've been to events or church services where a person is speaking, maybe the singer between some songs, and it's quite audible, but it's very muddy and indirect. Sounds like it's coming from anywhere or everywhere. I know from experience that I'm actually hearing the fallback system far more than I'm hearing the front of house system. The simple fact is that I can't add any clarity or presence to that vocal mic through the front of house system because the fallback system is too loud. It's muddy for two reasons. One, I'm hearing out of the back of the monitor speakers, not directly from the front. Bass goes everywhere, whereas treble or high sounds, they're the ones that provide clarity and they are quite directional. Number two is I'm probably hearing reflected sound off the back wall of the stage, which is arriving at my ear a tiny bit later than the sound straight from the fallback speaker. So I'm hearing the same thing twice in quick succession, which will also confuse my hearing. So we want to combat this by having complete control over what noise is coming from the stage, to the extent that is possible. Fundamentally, we just want the music team to be quieter. The excess volume could be from their instruments, amplifiers, or the fallback speakers, but most likely all of these things combined are to blame. There are lots of things across these installments that I can talk about that can help with this conundrum. There's physical solutions like the players on stage using in-ear fallback. There's pointing amplifiers at players rather than the congregation. But the conversation today is more about a discussion you are going to start with your musicians, with your music team, about them hearing what they need to hear and not necessarily what they want to hear. This is inherent to our concept that the sound person is a key and integral member of the music team. What we're trying to achieve is for each individual on stage to receive what they need and only what they need. As an example, singers usually need their own voice, one or some of the people they're singing with, the melody instrument they're singing along to, and the rhythm instrument that is keeping them in time. They don't need a full band mix. They just don't need to feel the full spectacular glory of stereophonic sound to do their job. They just need what they need to fulfill their role. So this conversation needs to be had with the whole team for the benefit of the congregation. We're all here to serve, you with them, for the benefit of the congregation. We're all here to serve. We're not here for our own glory. This is a really important conversation to have and to constantly put into practice. So how do we have this conversation? We really don't want to get to the point that we throw up our hands in exacerbation and go, oh my goodness, it's too loud. I can't make anything work. So as we work with our music team from the very beginning, we want to stress this idea of what do you need as a musician to effectively play your part? Does it need to be this loud? How quiet can it be? Here is the key idea and probably the best tool that you have in this space. Are you ready? What else can we turn down? We actually want to interpret each request from the team on stage. Can I please have more vocals in my foldback? Probably means I can't hear my voice. So, in turn, what else is in the foldback that I could possibly reduce or turn down to make the vocal more prominent? So quite often the solution is turning down the keyboard rather than turning up the vocal. It's a really important philosophy to have. Almost every time you're asked the question, I challenge you to turn something down rather than turn something up. I also encourage you to regularly wander around stage before church while the team is playing and listen to everything that is happening on stage. Is that the acoustic drum kit that's making a lot of sound? Is it an electric guitar? Are the bass and guitar amps turned up really loud? Is that an electric guitar amplifier pointing at the singers? Maybe we could just put some kind of baffle or turn the amplifier around so it's not facing the singers. It's all about control of sound, and it's all about minimizing the amount of sound on stage, which will in turn minimize the amount of unwanted noise that travels into our congregation. A couple of things to think about in this space. The first one is, while you're doing your sound check or rehearsals before the congregation gets in, make sure you spend time with the front of house system turned off so you can actually hear the impact of what's happening on and from stage. If you're in the congregation space and can comfortably hear everything that's going on, although not necessarily sounding good without your main front of house speakers turned on, you're actually going to struggle to make it sound good for the congregation, and you'll have very little control over your overall sound. Having the main system off is a good approach for discovering how much sound is being generated from your stage. It might even be that you get your team leader to come out into the pews and have a listen and realise, oh wow, there's no chance of us sounding good out here if this is how much noise we're creating. The conversation needs to happen at the beginning of the morning, at the beginning of your rehearsal or practice, or possibly a philosophical conversation with your music and sound teams over a coffee or at an in-house training day. It is most helpful if you're all heading in the same direction. Another thing to note is that while the band is practicing, you should be able to play with your front of house sound without impacting their rehearsal. You can just listen to a single vocal mic in your front of house system. You can listen to just the keyboard and adjust away. Make it sound good in isolation. You don't always have to have everything turned up out front. Another really important concept is that if the band is not on stage, none of their microphones should be on. And in fact, the only microphones that should be on are the microphones that are currently in use. Likewise, the only foldback speakers turned on are the foldback speakers that are currently in use. We need to constantly reduce all noise sources so that they are just non-existent, so we continue to have total control over our main system. So to emphasize this point, when we have Jonathan doing spoken word, preaching, praying, or Bible reading, the only microphone in the entire system that should be on is the microphone he is speaking into. This gives us the best possible opportunity for clear and clean sound without clicks, pops, buzzes, feedback, hollowness, or echoey sounds. Another really important consideration. As a general rule, people delivering spoken word do not require foldback. And in fact, most inexperienced people will balk at hearing themselves through foldback. So you'll actually get more natural results when spoken word people get no foldback. In addition, they'll generally project more, which is what we want. We want a good, solid, confident source of sound. Anne is going to project better when there is no foldback because her brain is thinking, I need to talk to the person in the back of the room instead of, oh, it's so loud, I better speak quietly and move away from this microphone. So there we are. The Turn It Down installment is a wrap. In other 10-minute installments, ideas include to drum or not to drum. How can left, centre, right mean the same thing as front of house? How do I dry my black t-shirts? If you haven't listened to installment 1, please do. It's the starting point to launch from. All the other installments are optional, but in a suggested order, and many of the ideas do overlap and should help you on your journey. But until that day comes, I will go and warn the darkness that the light of Jesus Christ has overcome.